There's this very small moment you'll recognize instantly. Someone's nodding while you speak. Their face says they're engaged, but their eyes have already moved on. Not dramatically, not even rudely, just somewhere else. You're still mid-sentence. You haven't made your point yet, but they've already finished reading you. They know where this is going. They know what you're about to say. They know how you'll react when they push back. And in that fraction of a second, something irreversible happens. The power dynamic shifts. You just lost position. And the worst part? You have no idea it even occurred. If you've ever felt like you're not weak, like there's absolutely nothing fundamentally broken about you, but you still can't understand why people started treating you differently, why your voice carries less weight than it used to, why doors close for you, but open for others who seem less capable, then you're exactly where you need to be. Stay. And if what I'm about to say lands the way I think it will, you already know what to do with that subscribe button. Here's the truth. Nobody wants to tell you about how the world actually works. It's not cruel in the obvious ways. It doesn't attack you head on. It doesn't need to. The world removes your authority in silence. It happens in those micro adjustments, in the half-second delay before someone responds to your input. In the way conversations continue after you speak, as if you hadn't spoken at all. In the way your ideas get credited to whoever repeats them louder. And here's what makes this so uncomfortable. Look at the people who command real presence in any space. They're usually not warm, not particularly approachable, not the ones cracking jokes or making everyone feel included. They're often the coldest person in the room. They don't over-explain. They don't fill awkward silences. They don't perform emotional labor to make you comfortable. But when they speak, everything stops. Not because they demanded attention, because everyone else surrendered it. Power doesn't explain itself. Power doesn't need to be understood. Power is given room. The question you should be asking is, why aren't you given that room? Now, you've been taught a specific set of beliefs your entire life. Be authentic. Be vulnerable. Openness is strength. Let people see the real you, and they'll respect you for it. Honesty equals integrity. Transparency builds trust. Share your process, and people will value your thoughtfulness. And I'm not here to tell you these are lies. I'm here to tell you they're dangerously incomplete. Because when you make yourself too easy to read, you're not building connection. You're handing people a detailed map of your interior world. Your weak spots, your pressure points, your patterns, what threatens you, what you'll tolerate, what makes you fold. And here's the part that'll sting. People don't even need to dislike you to use this information against you. They don't need malicious intent. They just need to root around you, to manage you, to position themselves above you in the invisible hierarchy. You're not getting hurt because you're weak. You're getting hurt because people know exactly how you'll react. They didn't betray you. They just used the manual you handed them. Every time you over-explain yourself, you're writing their playbook against you. And predictability? Predictability isn't honesty, it's vulnerability in the worst possible sense. Let that sit for a second. There's a philosopher most people know by reputation, but few understand in practice, Machiavelli. And no, this isn't about being manipulative or cruel. Machiavelli's actual insight was much colder and much more precise than that. He didn't teach people how to win. He taught them how to prevent others from knowing when they were winning against you. He understood that the moment someone can predict your response, they have leverage, and leverage is position. And position is the entire game. His work wasn't about domination. It was about remaining unreadable in a world where everyone is constantly trying to map you, categorize you, and figure out exactly how much pressure it takes to move you. The people who hold power aren't necessarily smarter or more ruthless. They're just harder to read. And because they're harder to read, people approach them differently, more carefully, with more respect. Not because they earned it through kindness, because they never gave away the information that would allow someone to dismiss them. So here's the core principle that everything else builds from. Listen carefully. Power comes from being unreadable, not from being understood. I'll say that again, because this is the axis everything rotates on. Power comes from being unreadable, not from being understood. This is the single most important thing you need to internalize. Most people spend their entire lives optimizing for being understood, being liked, being seen as good, and they wonder why they have no leverage, why their boundaries get stepped on, why they're always explaining themselves to people who've already stopped listening. So why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we make ourselves so transparent? It starts with your biology. Your brain evolved for tribal survival. For hundreds of thousands of years, exile from the group meant death. So your nervous system developed an alarm system around social rejection. When you sense disapproval, your brain doesn't think. It panics. It screams, "Fix this. Explain yourself. Get back in their good graces. Make them understand so they don't reject you." This isn't a character flaw. It's evolutionary wiring. The problem is, we don't live in tribes anymore. We live in hierarchies. And in hierarchies, the person who needs acceptance is always positioned below the person who doesn't. Your brain is trying to protect you using software built for an environment that no longer exists. Then, there's the social conditioning layered on top. You were raised to be nice, accommodating, the person people could count on. And for the first part of your life, this probably worked beautifully. Teachers praised you, parents were proud, friends appreciated you. You were so mature and so reliable and such a good person. But then something shifted, slowly, quietly. The same traits that got you validation started making you invisible. The same openness that built connection started getting you managed. Because here's the truth, no one teaches you. Society doesn't actually run on ethics. It runs on positioning. And niceness, openness, transparency, those aren't moral virtues in the game of positioning. They're information leaks. The person who is easy to read is the person who is easy to manage. And no one respects what they can manage. Here's the trap that destroys people. The more you sense your position slipping, the more you try to explain, the more you talk, the more you justify your worth, prove your value, demonstrate your competence. But every explanation exposes more. Every justification shows more need. And need is the death of power. The person who needs to be understood is always beneath the person who doesn't care whether they are. This is not an opinion. This is structural. Let me show you what this looks like in real interactions. Same situation, two completely different energies. Someone at work questions your decision in front of others. Here's what the readable version of you says. I totally get why that might seem confusing, and I probably should have explained this earlier, but we've been under a ton of pressure to hit these numbers, and when I looked at last quarter's data, I noticed a pattern that made me think if we just adjust the timeline a little bit, we could still hit our targets without completely burning everyone out. I know it looks like a risk, and maybe it is, but I've honestly been thinking about this non-stop, and I really believe this is the most strategic path forward. Does that make sense? Now here's the unreadable version. I've accounted for that. This is the direction we're moving. That's it. Same decision, same situation, completely different power structure. In the first version, you're asking for permission retroactively. You're performing your thought process like you're trying to prove you deserve to make decisions. You're revealing that you need their agreement to feel secure in your choice. You just handed them 12 different threads they can pull. They can question your data, challenge your timeline, poke at your concern about burnout, dismiss your pattern recognition. In the second version, they have nothing to grab onto. You're not arguing, you're not justifying. You're stating a reality. And notice what happens psychologically. When you don't explain, people assume there's more you're not saying. They assume you have reasons you're not sharing. And that assumption? That's where your authority lives. Here's another scenario. Someone close to you says something that crosses a line. The readable response, "Hey, can we talk about something?" When you said that earlier, It's been bothering me all day. I don't think you meant it the way it came out, but it kind of made me feel like maybe you don't really take my opinions seriously. And I just wanted to bring it up because I think communication is super important, and I don't want this to turn into something bigger. I just need you to understand where I'm coming from. The unreadable response: I'm not doing this. Then stop talking. Same boundary, completely different structure. In the first version, you've given them your entire emotional blueprint. You've shown them exactly how much power they have over your inner state. You've revealed what hurts you and how deeply. In the second version, you've drawn a line without explaining the geometry behind it. And here's the thing most people miss. Unexplained boundaries are taken more seriously than explained ones, because you can't negotiate with what you can't map. Let me tell you something that happened to someone I know, and this will make the whole thing uncomfortably concrete. Extremely competent person, stellar performance reviews, well liked by their team, got passed over for a leadership position. When they asked why, the decision maker said something that still haunts me. You're excellent at execution, but you're a little too predictable, not unreliable, not incompetent, predictable. And when they pressed for details, here's what came out. We always know how you're going to respond to pressure. We know what makes you anxious. We know what you'll push back on and where you'll give ground. And for a leadership role, we need someone we can't quite get a read on. The person left that meeting and spent the entire night replaying it, because it wasn't criticism of their work. It wasn't even criticism of their character. It was a diagnosis of their positioning. What they were really being told was, you've given us too much information. We know how to manage you, and we can't put someone in a power seat when we already know exactly how to move them. That's the sentence that should terrify you, because it means you can be perfect at everything and still lose position simply because you're too legible. Now we need to zoom out and understand what's really happening here. This isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing games or being fake or putting on a performance. Those are the words people use when they're uncomfortable with the reality of power. What we're talking about is something much more fundamental. When you become unreadable, you're not hiding who you are. You're refusing to hand over your leverage. You're stepping out of the role of the person who constantly needs validation, understanding, approval. And that's the role of someone without power. Think about the people you actually respect, not the people you like, not the people who make you feel warm, the people whose opinion genuinely affects you. I'd bet money they don't explain themselves much. They don't seek reassurance. They don't fill every pause with clarification. They just exist, and you adjust to them, not the other way around. That's not because they're better than you. It's because they haven't given you the information you'd need to manage them. Some people will hear this and think it's cold, manipulative even. So let me be clear about what this is and what it isn't. Manipulation is pretending to be something you're not, to extract value from someone. Being unreadable is simply refusing to give people free access to your internal operating system. Manipulation requires deception. Being unreadable just requires boundaries and silence. There's a massive difference. One is performance, the other is sovereignty. Here's the shift. When you stop needing to be understood immediately, people have to come toward you. They have to interpret, they have to wonder, and the act of wondering puts them in a receptive psychological position. You stop being the thing they've already categorized. You become the thing they're trying to figure out. And categories? Categories are where power dies. The moment someone fully understands you, you become manageable. The moment you're manageable, you've lost position. So what does this actually look like as you move through your life? It means you stop explaining decisions to people who haven't earned an explanation. It means you stop filling silences because you're afraid someone might misinterpret your quiet. It means you let people misunderstand you, not out of cruelty, but because their understanding is not your responsibility. Your job isn't to make everyone comfortable with who you are. Your job is to hold your ground. And holding ground requires space. Space requires boundaries. And boundaries require the capacity to let people sit in uncertainty about you. This is the hardest part for most people, because it feels like disconnection. It feels like you're shutting people out, but you're not. You're refusing to collapse yourself into whatever shape makes them comfortable. And that refusal is where all your power lives. The person who can sit in not being liked, not being understood, not being immediately validated, that person cannot be moved easily, cannot be managed quietly, cannot be dismissed casually. Think about how much of your energy goes into making sure people understand your intentions, into proving you're not what they might think you are, into performing goodness so no one can question it. Now imagine taking all that energy back. Imagine using it to simply move, to decide, to act, without the exhausting performance of justifying every step to an invisible jury. That's what being unreadable gives you, not loneliness, sovereignty. So here's where we land. This channel isn't for people who want to be universally liked. It's not for people who need everyone to understand them. It's for people who've realized that being misunderstood is the cost of being unmanageable. This is for people who'd rather hold their position than hold everyone's hand, who understand that the respect that actually matters doesn't come from being easy to read. It comes from being impossible to predict. If you're choosing that, if you're choosing to keep more of yourself to yourself, to let your actions carry more weight than your explanations, to become someone people have to approach carefully, then you're in the right place. Subscribe, stay, and if this hit you the way I think it did, comment and let me know you're here. Because the people who understand this aren't waiting for permission anymore, they're just taking up space.